Okay, so is it about the 21 prompts? Well, maybe, but not necessarily. Like the other question is, how do people want to draw this together, or maybe go in a different direction? So it depends on how they're thinking of this, and how they're making sense of this process. Did the 21 days become just a way for them to think through some stuff, and then they might now create something different?
Mm.
Or did something happen in the 21 days that is like so important it should be the product? Or does it help them go back to their original abstract and think differently about how to enact it? So there are those questions. Or how much does their piece really think through, or how much are they really addressing the questions that we kept pounding over the 21 days, but before that as well? Like, how do those relate to the research question? So it's not about the 21 days exactly. It can be, and that can be part of it, or that could be a moment that's just one moment in the 21 days that then one is expanding on. It's not, so maybe that's not the best question if somebody's saying, should it be about the 21 days or not? It's like, well, the larger question is, what do you want to say, and how does that relate to the research questions of how are we making sense of the self and the other, or the relationship between self and other and technology, or the relationship between technology, humans, and the planet? And how does COVID-19 help us as a moment to reflect on some of those relationships? And or how are people making sense of life in a global pandemic? And that, of course, can't be separated now from life in a global series of protests. So, I mean, it can be separated, but it might not be for some people. And so I think, so the 21 days of prompting, I think, helps people focus on those 21 days, but in some ways it beguiles people into thinking that is actually the product, and that's not the product. As far as I'm concerned, that's a process. And that the process is ongoing, but then there's what out of those 21 prompts, or what is it that now somebody wants to say, having gone through those 21 prompts? Or maybe they can say, that was worthless, useless experiment, and so I want to go back to the original idea. Or they might say, they might focus on those prompts that they hated or they didn't want to do, and sort of think about, well, why not? And what does that have to do with anything? Right? So it might just be that they're learning more about themselves through these prompts, and how they tend to think, and how they like to think, and how they don't like to be pushed, or how they, might have been grateful to be pushed into ways of thinking or doing that isn't necessarily something they would regularly do. So it's not about them specifically, but they are useful as exactly what they were called, which is prompts, to provoke a kind of a trajectory, but not even a trajectory. Perhaps maybe it's just to sort of be a blip on a chart, or a moment, or like something to create a moment that then gets reflected on and built from.